What's up guys? Today I'm going to take you through the 2026 USAP approved rule changes that will take effect on January 1st. While these aren't super big changes, it's important that you know them so that you can follow them and enforce them on the courts. So the first change is probably the most important in this video, and it has to do with the volley serve, or the serve that you hit before it bounces. So not the drop serve, but the volley serve. And this is what I see most people doing. So these rules weren't changed, but they were made a little bit stricter. And the way that they did this is that they added the word clearly to the rules. So the rules stated that you must hit the serve below your waist. You must hit the serve with the paddle, the highest point of the paddle, being below your wrist. And you must hit the serve using an upward motion. So those were the rules in 2025. Now, the rules state that you clearly must hit the serve below your waist. You clearly must be hitting the ball with your paddle below your wrist, the highest point of your paddle below your wrist, and you clearly must be using an upward motion. So why is this a change? Well, now if it's not clear, if a referee can't tell that you're doing this, they can call it as a fault. So I'm sure if you play a lot of pickleball, you've seen people hitting serves like this, where it's sort of just on the edge. Maybe they're side arming it, maybe they're not, getting their paddle below their hand. They're breaking one of these rules, and you can't really tell because it's sort of hard to see. Now, if it's not clear to a ref, they can call a fault on you. So to follow this, you just have to make sure that when you're serving, you are clearly following these rules. So you need to clearly be doing the 3 different elements of a legal volley serve, which will look something like that. You can still serve really hard with this, but if you're in a tournament and you're hitting it like this, the paddle is above your wrist, or you're not using an upward motion, you're sort of just going straight into it like this, the ref might call it on you. I think in rec play, it's gonna still be hard to enforce this rule, but in a tournament, it's going to be enforceable, so I think that will sort of bleed into rec play. You'll stop seeing players hitting crazy illegal serves, which are honestly just making games more unfair and things less fun. So I actually think this is a good change because it's enforcing the rules and it's gonna make it so people follow them better. If you guys see a lot of people breaking these rules on the courts, which I know I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so this video gets pushed out more and more people stop breaking this rule. So this next rule is more of a clarification than an actual rule change, but it's honestly maybe one of the most confused rules in the sport, and it's that you're not allowed to add extra spin to your serve with your hand or your paddle before you hit it. But a lot of people took this as you're not allowed to spin the ball with your paddle when you're serving. So you're totally allowed to spin the ball with the paddle when you hit the serve. So I'm allowed to spin the ball on contact, but I'm not allowed to spin the ball prior to contact. So I can't spin it, then hit it. So that's the confusion that a lot of people are having. So they cleared this rule up a little bit in the new rule book. They just made it more clear so that players know you can't spin or manipulate the ball before you hit it, but you can totally do whatever you want to it with the paddle when you're making contact. So the next rule change has to do with one that was actually a change last year, and it's that they made double hits legal. So as you saw there, I hit the ball twice in one continuous forward motion. So you have to be using one continuous, one directional motion. So I can't like catch it, then hit it again. My paddle has to be going the same direction, and then it counts if I do a double hit. What's not legal is if I have a non-one directional motion. So I stopped it, then I hit it. You can't do that. So this is something that should happen accidentally. It's not something that's gonna happen on purpose. They also made it so that carries are illegal last year. So you can't catch the ball like that and then pretty much throw it at your opponents. This year, the change is that they're also allowing triple hits, or if you hit the ball more than 2 times. So it could be quadruple hits too, but it's unlikely you're gonna hit the ball 4 times. So if you somehow hit the ball 3 times like I just did there, and you're using a one-directional continuous motion, that counts. So they didn't have really any rule for if it's more than 2 times. But now, pretty much if you hit the ball any number of times, as long as it's not a carry and it's a one-directional continuous motion, that counts and it's fully legal, and you should continue the point as you're playing. And if you guys are looking for a paddle upgrade for the new year, I highly recommend you check out our new one, the Duo. The Duo is a full foam core paddle that has maxed out stats under the USAP rules. If you're currently using something that's lower quality, this is the kind of paddle that'll actually make a massive difference in your game. If you want to grab a Duo, head to our site and use code RULES for $20 off. Also, we have the wide body version of this paddle coming out on December 30th, so stay tuned for that. The next rule has to do with a ball that you have on the court that's not actually the ball you're using. If you're in a point and there's an additional ball on the court, there's some rules that surround this. The first is that if the ball falls onto the court during the point, this is a fault. So this was already a rule. If you have a ball in your pocket or something and it falls onto the court during the point, this is a fault. It was last year and it still is this year. The new rule is that if you have a ball that's visible to your opponents, so maybe you're carrying it or maybe it's in your pocket and it's kind of like peeking out a little bit, this is also a fault now. So it used to say that you couldn't have a ball that's visible to your opponents because it is sort of distracting. Like imagine you're trying to track the ball and someone just has a ball that's right next to it. It's kind of hard to tell which ball is which. It kind of just, you shouldn't really be doing that, right? So now they have an official rule. If you have a ball that's visible to your opponents during a point that you're not playing with, so even if it's just peeking out of my pocket like this, that is considered a fault. So is this something that they're gonna enforce in rec play? I don't know if it's that important, but to be honest, you should probably just put the ball in your pocket. It's probably a better idea not to be carrying another ball during the point, especially if you use two hands or something. In a tournament though, you definitely cannot be using another hand to hold the ball, and it shouldn't be peeking out of your pocket. So make sure to follow this rule. Don't carry another ball during the point or else you will get a fault. The next rule has to do with consulting spectators about out calls. So before, the rule stated that you should not consult spectators on out calls. So it was sort of encouraging not to consult spectators, but it wasn't really like officially a rule where you could penalize people for it. Now it says you must not consult spectators about out calls. So if I am going to call a ball out and maybe I'm not sure, and I looked at the people on the side and go, was that out? If it's a tournament, I can actually get penalized for it, right? So if it's rec play, I mean, you can probably do it, no one's gonna care. But in a tournament, you're now no longer allowed under any circumstances to consult spectators about whether or not a ball landed out. You need to make that decision with you and your partner, okay? So don't ask other people on the sides of the court. You have to make that call on your own. So the next rule has to do with permanent objects on the court. So the number one permanent object is the net post, but this part of the net's also a permanent object, maybe a chair on the court, the ceiling. So the rule states, if you hit a permanent object on the fly, so let's see if I can do it. If I hit the net post, I missed there. If I hit the net post, that is my opponent's point automatically because I hit the net post on the fly. The rule though, now they changed it in that if you hit the net post after it bounces on your opponent's side of the court, you actually win the point. So that wasn't in the rules. I think people were maybe assuming it was, but let's say I hit the ball over and it blows into the net post or it spins into the net post after it bounces on their side. That would then be my point. So before, that would actually have been the other, the opponent's point. Same thing happens if I hit a chair. Let's say I hit a chair on the fly, it's their point, but let's say it bounces, then hits a chair on the side of the court. Well, then it's actually gonna be my point. So it's just adding in the situation that if the ball bounces, then hits the permanent object, it's your point, not your opponent's anymore. This next rule has to do with how fast you have to call a ball after it is out. So there's a few different rules around this. One of them is that if you hit a ball that's out, so let's say your opponent hits a ball that's out, you hit it back to your opponent, you have to call it out before they hit the ball. So before your opponent hits the ball again, you need to make the out call or else it's considered a late call. So where the rule changes though is when your opponent hits an out ball and the ball dies, or it's considered a dead ball. So what that means is if the ball goes out and then it bounces twice, then it's a dead ball. If the ball goes out and it hits you, it's also a dead ball. So let's say you just catch it. So if the ball goes out and you catch it, it's a dead ball. So you don't have to call the ball out before it's considered a dead ball, but they do say now that you have to call the ball promptly. So essentially they just added this rule so that you call the ball quickly after it's a dead ball. So you can't just wait like 10 seconds to call the ball if it's dead. So if the ball comes and it's dead, you should already have called the ball probably right after the ball bounces twice, or honestly before the ball bounces twice. You shouldn't be waiting that long. There's not really a reason to wait. So that's why they made the rule that you need to call it promptly. Prior to this, you could literally just wait until the next serve to call the ball, which didn't really make any sense. It was confusing for referees. So they really just added the rule that you need to call the ball promptly, even if it's a dead ball. Honestly though, guys, you should call the ball as soon as you see it's out. So your call should look like this: out. You don't really need to wait until it's a dead ball. This rule is not that important. You probably won't need to make that much use of it. Just making sure that you know it so you can enforce it on the courts if someone's making a late call after a dead ball. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I have all the rule changes linked below if you want to read them. Those were actually only the ones that I thought were the most important. Some of the other ones are, probably things you'll never have to consider, but if you want to read them and learn them all, I do have the rule book linked below. If not, see you next time.